The regular meeting of the Mishawaka Common Council for Monday, October 14th, 2024 will please come to order. Good evening. Those of you who are in attendance, we're happy to see you. If you would, please take a moment to check your cell phone to make sure that you have placed it on silent or vibrate. And for those of you who are participating remotely, we also welcome you. Members of the public participating remotely are asked to place their microphone on mute during the meeting with the exception of any public hearing. At the appropriate point in the public hearing, I will invite the public to unmute their microphone for purposes of submitting comments, one person at a time. All persons wishing to make public comments will be asked to first state their name and address for the record, and after completing the comment, members of the public are once again asked to place their microphone on mute. We thank all of you this evening for your cooperation, and at this time, if you would, please join us in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes, here.
Mrs. Volker?
Here.
Mr. Carroll?
Here.
Mr. Banicki?
Here.
Mr. Emmons?
Here.
Ms. Hahn?
Here.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Here.
Mr. Violi?
Here.
Mr. Hicksonball?
Here. Approval of the minutes of our regular meeting of September 23rd, 2024. Are there any additions or corrections? And hearing none, the minutes will stand approved as received from the clerk's office. Petitions, communications, remonstrance, and memorial.
Yes, Mr. President, we had a letter from the Board of Zoning Appeals regarding their recommendation from their October 8th meeting. Honorable members, a regular meeting of the Mishawaka Board of Zoning Appeals was held on the above date, at which time the following use variants were considered. Appeal number 24-40, an appeal submitted by Donald Mahorter requesting a use variance for 426 East Mishawaka Avenue, Mishawaka, Indiana, to allow it for a food truck. The board, with a vote 3-0, provided favorable recommendations. Appeal number 24-44, an appeal submitted by Grape Day LLC requesting a use variance for 4230 Grape Road, Mishawaka, Indiana, to allow for 2 refrigerated storage containers. The board, with a vote 3-0, provided favorable recommendation. Appeal number 24-48, an appeal submitted by Mishawaka Property Investments 2 LLC and Roadmap 1 LLC requesting a use variance for 602 North Main Street and 605 East University Drive, Mishawaka, Indiana, to allow 2 car sales at each location. The board, with a vote 3-0, provided favorable recommendation. This is signed by Donna Burkhart, Administrative Planner, Secretary. We have a letter from the City Plan Commission regarding their recommendation from their October 8th meeting. Honorable members, a regular meeting of the Mishawaka Plan Commission meeting was held on the above date, at which time the following petition was considered. A petition submitted by Vandam and Tatiana Lubin requesting a rezone for property at 3728 Lincoln Way East, Mishawaka, Indiana, from C1 General Commercial to R3 Multifamily Residential. The commission, with a vote 7-0, recommended approval. This is signed by Donna Burkhart, Administrative Secretary.
Thank you. This evening, we have no report of any special committee, so we'll move into ordinances on first reading.
Yes, Mr. President, we have an ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of City of Mishawaka, Indiana, as from time to time amended, commonly known as the Zoning Ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is a rezone from C1 General Commercial to R3 Multifamily Residential for a 4-unit apartment building at 3728 Lincoln Way East.
Proposed ordinance 2024-25 will be assigned to the Land Use Planning Committee.
Proposed ordinance 24-26, an ordinance declaring an emergency and transfer of reappropriating funds within the budget adopted for the calendar year ending December 31st, 2024. This is a transfer of funds from the clerk's office for $4,000.
Proposed ordinance 2024-26 will be assigned to the Budget and Finance Committee.
We have proposed ordinance 2024-27, an ordinance fixing the salaries of all employees of the City of Mishawaka except elected officials, sworn public safety, Mishawaka Park Department, and the Mishawaka Utilities for the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, for the year beginning January 1, 2025.
Proposed ordinance 2024-27 will be assigned to the Budget and Finance Committee.
Proposed ordinance 2024-28, an ordinance fixing the salaries of certain elected officials of the city of Mishawaka for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2025.
Proposed ordinance 2024-28 will be assigned to the Budget and Finance Committee.
Proposed ordinance 2024-29, an ordinance fixing the salaries of all sworn police employees of the city of Mishawaka for Mishawaka, Indiana, for the year beginning January 1, 2025.
Proposed ordinance 2024-29 will be assigned to the Budget and Finance Committee.
2024-30, an ordinance fixing the salaries of all sworn fire employees of the Mishawaka for the city of Mishawaka, Indiana, for the year beginning January 1, 2025, and continuing for 2 years.
Proposed ordinance 2024-30 will also be assigned to the Budget and Finance Committee. Resolutions.
Yes, Mr. President. We have Resolution 2024-19, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, approving a petition of the Mishawaka Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at 426 East Mishawaka Avenue. This is for a use variance to allow for a food truck and developmental variance for a reduction in high privacy fence from 7 to 6 feet.
Thank you. We will now open the public hearing on proposed resolution 2024-19. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium and begin by stating your name and address for the record. And this again has to do with 426 East Mishawaka Avenue.
So I'm Donald Mahorter from 426 East Mishawaka Avenue, and I'm seeking for the use variance on the food truck and the
Sir,
reduction.
I don't mean to interrupt, but if you could, move a little bit closer to the microphone or
sorry.
move it closer to you. We're having a little trouble hearing you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Is that better? There we go.
Better.
So I'm seeking for the use variance for the food truck, and also seeking to have the reduction in the fence from 7 feet to 6 foot for the, which was requested by the city.
Thank you. And this evening, we'll be dealing with the proposed use of the food truck only, since
Okay.
the fence issue was handled by the Board of Zoning
Okay,
Appeals.
I'm
but
still-
That's just the way the process
Okay.
works, and you're doing fine.
Understood.
So is there anything else that you want to tell us with regard to your plans for using the food truck?
Not really too much. It's something that I think would be good to go along with the patio that I'm planning on putting in the spring of next year. And it's something that I'm thinking that 3 days a week, like they were telling me that is more likely to happen, is perfectly fine. I don't even plan on possibly doing the 3 days a week, actually. It's just something that I think in the future would be a good addition for the shop, but I would just try to do it inside where I'm at now, but my kitchen's so small I can't add all of the extra equipment in there to do it. So this is the only other option that I could come up with. And it also, I can take it wherever I want, other than just right there at the shop there.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from the council? Mr. Mamalenti?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for coming this evening.
Yeah.
The new place looks amazing. Just
Thank
wanted
you.
to tell you that. I drive by that sign and it looks great. So you did a great job. I can't wait to stop in and ensure that it's just as good of a sandwich as it was at the other location.
Yeah.
So going to the food truck, when it's not in use, do you plan to have it parked and remained on the side of the house or the restaurant?
No, it'll be parked in the back by the parking lot.
Okay, so
Back
only when
there.
it's in service?
But yeah,
will it
only when
be-
it's in service.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, thank you.
Ms. Hahn?
Hi, again, congratulations on the new place.
Thank
It
you.
does look really good. So when the food truck is not in service and open those 3 days, do you plan on taking it to festivals around town? Going to like some of the big events we have down at the beer garden? Is that something that's in the future, or is it more just add to your current location?
It's going to be something that we would possibly take other places. I just don't want to commit to anything.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the help to put in there to run it all 3 days. So it's going to be something that'll be like hit and miss of when I'll be open, to run the ice cream. I'm mostly looking at like 4th of July to do it then. Other than that, it's just whenever I can find someone to get in there and operate it. And right now, I don't have anybody. It's just basically my mom and stepdad that are considering doing it. So it keeps them busy, so that's kind of like the plan of starting it up and getting it going that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Mrs. Volker?
Thank you. Yes, the place looks great. I have two questions. When are you opening?
When am I opening?
Yeah.
The ice cream?
No.
Oh, I'm open now.
You are
Yeah.
open?
Yeah. I've been open for almost a month and a half now.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, good. Okay. And where are you getting your ice cream?
Oh, we haven't decided on a place yet. We're still looking into it.
Okay. Gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were open.
It's okay.
I'll be there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Hazen?
Hi, I
Hello.
just have one quick question. Have you purchased a food truck yet, or are you looking to purchase one, or once things are settled, or,
No, we have already purchased one.
so you do have one?
We do, yeah.
Okay.
Other questions from the council? Then I will add my congratulations. You did a great job in your former location, and it does my heart good to see what used to be a bait store 100 years ago when I was a kid running around that neighborhood, repurposed for this use. I won't phrase this as a concern, but one of the things that catches my eye with regard to your request is that it's in the location where I understand the food truck to be located, if approved, is in fairly close proximity to some neighbors to the west. Have you had any conversations with the neighbors so that they're aware of this? And whether you have or you haven't, what provisions do you plan to make to make sure that you're a good neighbor to them as they're enjoying that structure, or their home?
As soon as I can, as soon as they're home to talk with them and have that conversation, yeah, I'm gonna have the conversation with them, just I can never catch him. He's a busy guy, he runs his own business, I know that, so catching him, yeah, it's kind of hard.
And I heard what you said earlier about perhaps it won't be 3 days a week, but if you operate as often or as 3 days a week, what 3 days are you assuming that you'll use?
We were thinking Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, yeah.
And as was mentioned at the BZA meeting, it stands to reason that given the close proximity to the park and the Riverwalk, that you would look to try to tap into some of that business and some of the activity right across the street from you. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then last question for me, at least, with regard to the hours, I note that the resolution also limits you to no more than 6 hours. What would you anticipate will be the hours of operation during those 3 days a week?
I was thinking 4 to 8 o'clock.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Carroll?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, again, went there the other day. It is a great place. As far as the food truck goes, the type that you have, is it one that we would have any noise concerns of when it's in operation?
No, not at all.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Violi?
Thank you, Mr. President. Did you bring us any samples of sandwiches tonight?
Unfortunately, no, I was just ready to get out of there
Okay.
and make it here on time. I didn't have time, guys.
The food truck, when you have it in place, where will you be serving, like where will the service window be?
It'd be the window facing the sidewalk.
On
So
the
front,
avenue,
on
facing the
end.
avenue?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Evans?
Thank you. On your ice cream truck, is it hard ice cream or is it the soft ice cream that is horrible?
Hand dip,
Pardon?
hand dipped.
Hand dip?
Yeah, we don't like that soft serve stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? If you would, please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone with us this evening who wants to speak against ice cream? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question?
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Ms. Han?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hicksonball?
Yes.
Resolution passes 9-0. Resolution 2024-20, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, approving a petition of the Mishawaka Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at 4320 Grape Road, Mishawaka, Indiana. This is for a use variance to allow 2 refrigerated storage containers.
Thank you. We'll now open the public hearing on proposed resolution 2024-20. And it appears to me that the counsel for the appellant is online. So Counselor, if you would, please begin by stating your name and business address for the record.
Sure. Good evening, and just want to make sure everybody can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. For the record, my name is Tyler Oakes. I'm an attorney with Bose McKinney and Evans, offices located at 111 Monument Circle, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46204. Here today on behalf of Grape Day LLC, but really here on behalf of the tenant, which is Whole Foods. And just for a quick background, Whole Foods has been located here since approximately 2012, and they've been serving both the South Bend and Mishawaka communities. And really this request today is because demand, particularly for the refrigerated and frozen products, has outgrown the supply in which they can store it inside. And so Whole Foods is seeking today your vote of approval so that they can have 2 refrigerated storage containers placed behind the building. Now, just quickly, where the storage containers will be situated is along a private road. I believe it's Princess City Plaza's road. So these will not be abutting a private road. We've also spoken with staff regarding landscaping obligations that we're going to put to make sure that these storage containers are screened, so they're not going to be able to be seen as easily from the public roadway, if at all. And we have no issues with staff's commitment requirements. The last thing I just wanted to add, I spoke with the fire marshal this morning via email. I just had emailed him last week to see if we had any concerns regarding these, and he told me as long as it's not going to impede fire or EMS services, he had no issue with these storage containers. So with that, I do want to thank the BZA as well as Mishawaka City staff for their help with this, and thank the BZA for their vote of recommendation. So I'm here to answer any questions. Leslie Smith, who's with Whole Foods, is also online and happy to answer any questions as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions from the council? Mrs. Volker.
Hi, Mr. Oakes. I do have a question about are those storage units already there?
Yeah, I believe they are. This was reported as a zoning violation, and so this is to come in compliance with the Mishawaka zoning ordinance.
And how long have they been there?
Leslie, are you able to answer that?
Hi, I know that we've had one that has been there for 1 year, and then the other one has been there for 3+ years prior to my start at the store.
And if I can interrupt, before we go any further, if you could, ma'am, please state your name and business address for the record.
Hi, my name is Leslie Smith, and the business address is 4230 Grape Road, Mishawaka, Indiana, 46545.
Thank you. Mrs. Volker, the floor is still yours.
Thank you. So just a follow-up question on the screening requirements. How long, I know in what I read, it says you have a year to put that in place. Is that how long it's going to take?
Again, I'll defer to Leslie if she has a different answer. I think the year is just what staff had come up with. My understanding, based on conversations with my client, is it certainly is not going to take that long. Once this is approved, I think they're going to start getting the wheels in motion and going through the proper hoops that they need to get this approved so that it could be put in sooner.
Yes, I agree. It shouldn't take a year at all. We'll jump right in as soon as we get the approval to make the necessary adjustments to the store as soon as possible.
So this is kind of a rhetorical question, but I think it's shame on us because we didn't notice that these things have been in place for a year and 3 years. But on the other hand, did you think that you might have to have permission to do that? To put those units there?
So I'll just jump in real quickly. I don't think my clients had any malintent regarding placement of the storage containers. I think in a lot of other municipalities, it's not uncommon to necessarily have storage containers specifically located in a commercial district. I think additionally, there are some other businesses in that area specifically that are commercial that have had them as well. And so I think to somebody not as well versed with Mishawaka zoning ordinance would know that storage containers were necessarily, you have to get approval for those in a commercial area. So there's obviously the carve out in the ordinance that says you need to go through BZA for that. Once my clients were notified that they were in violation, we took pretty immediate action, getting with Krista Hill and city staff to make sure that we did everything we needed to come in compliance. So I know my clients apologize for being in violation, but we're trying to rectify the wrong.
Thank you. I appreciate what you're doing. I really speaking a little bit of my frustration. But thanks for responding to the violation and for, if it's approved, getting it in a more sightly situation, and appreciate you being here today or being online today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Emmons.
Thank you, Mr. President. How large are these refrigerator storage units?
I'm trying to check my notes if I have the exact size. They should be, Leslie, do you have the exact dimensions of them? I don't believe I do.
I do not. I just know that they are under 52. Like a typical semi-trailer, it's smaller than that, but I don't have the specific measurements. I'm looking right now.
Okay, is it on the ground or is it on wheels?
It's directly on the ground.
Okay, and you have two of them the same size, correct?
Correct.
Do you have any anticipation of adding more?
We hope that we get to the point where we're big enough where we need more storage, but we did make a commitment that we would not add any external long-term storage. We will have some temporary storage for the holidays, but those are on wheels and they're 52 footers that are just here for Thanksgiving.
And where will those
But
be?
they will be in the side lot as well.
And that has been approved to have the other two there?
I cannot confirm that, but I will ask that question directly after this call.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Emmons. Mr. Mamalente.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick question, and pardon my ignorance, but if you did not have these refrigerated storage units, how would you handle inventory and business at that location with that demand?
We would not be able to fulfill as the customer demands based on how many deliveries we receive. And they are frozen storage, and we have just 2 small freezers in store, and they're packed to the gills. And we still have 4 deliveries a week. So we would see a lot of out of stock conditions in our frozen sections.
How often are those getting filled?
4 times a week.
The refrigerated storage units are getting filled 4 times a week currently?
Correct.
How long will they sit in there prior to going into the store?
we rotate through. Some things we do store out there that take a longer to sell through, so that way the in-store storage can be used for things that we need to fill multiple times a day. But I would say that product gets rotated through about a month at max for the longer, the less necessary product, if that makes sense.
And one last question regarding the storage unit that you'll have around Thanksgiving. How many days will that sit there?
That will sit there for a max of 60 days.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Carroll?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So as far as the storage containers go, seems to be a growing issue with retail in our city. You talked about potentially growing to need more. Is that the solution, or are there plans to possibly house this in a more traditional expansion kind of setting or different location? Is this just kind of what you would be relying on? The bigger you get, the more containers you'll need?
I feel that this is kind of a strange situation. We don't typically have these types of things located outside of our store, but the location that our store is in, it makes it very hard to expand. We have too many neighbors to be able to build out, but we are talking about getting a relocation at some point, or some sort of adjustments to our spacing inside. I don't anticipate that happening anytime soon, but we could potentially look at a solution of getting more deliveries, so that way we wouldn't have to have more storage outside. I do believe we committed to saying we weren't going to get more storage outside of the store past these two.
Thank you.
We don't have enough space outside to add any more anyway.
Thank you.
Other questions from the council? Then let me add a few. First of all, I appreciate Whole Foods and the success that they're enjoying in Mishawaka. I view them as being a good corporate resident of our community, and I'm happy to see that that you're successful enough that you need the additional storage. That's a problem of success. I'm going to echo Mrs. Volker's questions and some of the sentiments of my other colleagues. It typically does concern us and me as an individual when we have businesses come before us, after the fact, asking for permission with regard to something that they have been engaged in violation of our ordinances. But I accept at face value your explanation, Counselor, with regard to the inadvertent nature of this. The reason why I bring it up is that my hope would be that with regard to this temporary storage over the Thanksgiving holiday and whatever the future plans are, and admittedly, this is a pretty tight site in a busy shopping plaza, but whatever the future plans are, I would hope that now that you've initiated a working relationship with our planning staff, that you'll be in close contact with them so that whatever it's going to be, whenever it's going to happen, will be done in conjunction with our ordinances. And hopefully you can commit to that this evening on behalf of your client, Counselor.
To be honest with you, this is the first I've heard of the trailer that's being spoke of. And so I'd be lying to you if I spoke to them ahead of time about this. I will tell you that just from a legal standpoint and as counselor that's been engaged on this matter, it would certainly be my advice that we're going to speak with staff and comply with anything going forward. That's, the whole reason we're here in the first place is to make sure we're coming in compliance with Mishawaka. So it would be a little bit silly for us to be here right now asking for permission to have these 2 storage trailers and then turn right around and go commit another zoning violation that wasn't approved. So we will certainly be engaging Krista Hill and the rest of the Mishawaka zoning and planning staff to discuss what's necessary for this going further.
Thank you, I appreciate that. On a related topic, as the implementation of the screening requirements that are embedded in the resolution in front of us move forward, my hope would be that as the move toward perhaps some additional outside storage continues, that as was represented to us earlier, that the timeline will be expedited as quickly as possible, particularly since these have been in place for several years now, that rather than a year from now, we're going to start to see the screening that I think would be in keeping with our expectations in that area. And I appreciate the commitment that was made by Ms. Smith earlier with that, and I just want to indicate for the record that I think the council would appreciate, and the city as a whole would appreciate, that that be done as soon as possible. Last but not least, with regard to the conversation, Counselor, that you had with the fire marshal, the staff report notes a reference to perhaps a sprinkler needing to be installed in one or more of the trailers. Did that topic come up in your conversation with our fire marshal?
No, and I'm just pulling up. It's the one beauty of being virtual, pulling it up. But my conversation with him just was started because I had obviously read that same comment. And so I had just asked him, hey, do you have any cause for concern? These storage containers are refrigerated. I had watched a prior common council meeting in which there were some issues regarding with fireworks storage containers. So I did not want to be in that same situation. And so I phrased it more generally and just had said, these are refrigerated, and granted they're frozen and cold. But if he had any concerns from a fire standpoint, anything we needed to do. And he had said, he's happy to come out and look at them, but he'd said he had no issue with them. Again, as long as we're not going to impede EMS or firefighter services, and my clients have no intention of doing that, that'd be silly.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate those clarifications. Thank you. Are there any other questions from the council? Thank you then, sir, and Ms. Smith as well. Is there anyone else with us this evening who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed resolution? If so, please come forward.
Mr. President, members of council, Ken Prince, Director of Planning and Community Development. I'm not here to speak in favor, but I feel I need to provide information relative to the ordinance and what they are actually applying for. So virtually every retailer has a loading area where they bring in trailers and storage containers that are pulled out in and out on a seasonal or daily or weekly basis. That is permitted. Every store that is designed for it continues to do that. What is different here is they are asking for these to be permanent. So it's very hard to monitor, and they typically aren't aware of the nature that is between temporary and permanent. Well, I mean, I can pull it in for 2 months. What's the difference between 2 months or forever? Well, that's the issue that we have. And so as Krista has gone through it, she's identified on the aerial as we've had other issues of trailers that have been there, and that's how we catch it. So essentially, literally, we're looking for things that are over a year old as we update it and investigate this. So I just want to provide clarification on that matter. I don't want you to think that every trailer that's parked there is done there illegally. They are allowed to do it by right every year on a temporary basis. The issue is they're asking for it to be permanent. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Mrs. Volker.
Thank you. I do have a question, Kent. I'm
Yeah.
so glad you're up. Do we have a list? I mean, I know we approved one for Dick's. We approved one for Hobby Lobby. Trying to remember others. Do you keep a list of approved permanent storage?
Krista's the one that tracks. I don't know how she tracks it, but also not just Dick's, but the at Town and Country was
Right,
another
there's one
one.
at Town and Country.
Correct. So.
Yeah, I just wonder, I mean, should we be storage container police? You know what I mean? I see things.
So when
I don't know if they should be there or they shouldn't
Feel
be there.
free to bring them to our attention. Usually, we catch them when we start having circulation issues and you notice. For example, they talked about bringing in another trailer and you drive by that area behind Whole Foods. It's very tight in that location. That's usually when we investigate, is when there is an issue regarding getting around it, or we see multiple trailers and they don't have a place for them. That's usually the obvious way that we track them. We're not trying to be the trailer police. We have a lot of pressing issues, so we're not going to,
Right.
we're going to approach it as a problem-by-problem basis.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Mamalante.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Ken, for the explanation. Did I hear you correctly that any business can have temporary storage up to 60 days?
No, so we don't, it's the differences between permanent or temporary, and so we're going to have that argument of what's permanent or temporary, but typically Christmas, so to look at Thanksgiving and Christmas is typically the longest, which is why they said 60 days. So, but when we've asked, for example, fireworks, and people say, it's going to be here year-round, but we're only going to put fireworks in there for this period of 6 months where we think I have sales. Well, that's not the issue. The issue is that you're asking for it to be permanent in terms of that storage area. So we don't have a set time defined by the ordinance. The difference is solely permanent or temporary. If they're not pulling it back out on I would even say on a yearly basis, that would be a flag for us.
So the trailer, the Thanksgiving Day trailer that Ms. Smith is referencing, she'll be okay for up to 60 days to leave that trailer there without getting approval from us?
Again, I'd rather have her contact the office, because if you look at that area, I have no idea where they're going to put an additional trailer on that property.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that it's not blocking traffic, moving around, particularly at the holiday season, so that's what we're evaluating it for.
Okay. Well, just for the mere fact that Mr. Oakes watched that long video of the fireworks storage, I'm in favor of voting for this approval, but thank you for the
Of course.
the update.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Prince? Mr. Carroll?
Yeah, I just had one. I don't know if it's more of a comment than anything, but with the comprehensive plan going forward, it seems like, trailers, I think it's the third time this year we've had to deal with that. If there's any language or ordinance type of language, I'd be curious if the city's interested in streamlining a process or laying out things to say what, do we need more specifics for how commercial stores and retail stores and what can and cannot be in there? And I know the fire marshal was concerned about, if we grant rights, that they can put X, Y, Z in there, and I have no right to go in there and look at it. So if there is language that the city's interested in to make things safer for the firefighters and more streamlined for this process, so it's not every other meeting, I'd be happy to hear it.
So in a general term, we want this to be the exception and not the rule, so we don't want to make it easier. That's just a reality. But in terms of how we evaluate it, and specifically addressing the concerns of the fire marshal, I think that's valid, and we should look at that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for Mr. Prince? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the proposed resolution? If you would, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question. Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Ms. Han?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
Resolution passes 9-0.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Resolution 2024-21, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, approving a petition of the Mishawaka Board of Zoning Appeals for the properties located at 602 North Main Street and 605 East University Drive, Mishawaka, Indiana. And this is to allow use variance to allow 2 cars for sale at each location.
Thank you. We will now open the public hearing on proposed resolution 2024-21. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward. Seeing no one, is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in the proposed resolution related to 602 North Main Street and 605 East University Drive? Mr. Mamalenti.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that we postpone this to our next scheduled appointment or next scheduled meeting. Give time for the folks to come and present this case, ordinance.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to postpone second reading and public hearing on proposed further public hearing on proposed resolution 2024-21 until our next regularly scheduled council meeting of October 28th, 2024. Any additional questions or comments? Mrs.
Mr.
Booker.
President, I have noticed that this is another, just a comment, this is another situation where cars are already being sold. They're already on the lot. I've seen it on Mishawaka Avenue. That's just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Then hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to postpone signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. The matter will be postponed until our October 28th regularly scheduled council meeting.
We have a resolution approving, Resolution 2024-22, a resolution approving a waste and recycling removal contract with Waste Management of Indiana LLC.
Thank you. We will now open the public hearing on proposed resolution 2024-22. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium.
Mr. President, council members, Dave Wood, Mayor, here to urge you to support Resolution 2024-22. This is a big deal for the city of Mishawaka and for cities in general. This is one of these services that we cannot have interruption in. We have bid this service out per council request. The previous contractor had the business for several years under a couple of contract extensions. We heard the council loud and clear, so we went out and developed some new updated specs, and we went out to bid. We had several companies bid it, and so we, based on the responses we have, we select the highest, or the lowest, most responsive and responsible bidder. And so that, in this case, was Waste Management. This was an extensive process that involved a heck of a lot of our staff's time. And I want to thank those involved in this, including Chris Jamrose, Matt Lynch, Tim Ryan, just to name a few, John Rogaman here as well. Also, this involved a lot of conversations with council, and but at the end of the day, this is about our citizens. This is about uninterrupted trash collection, recycling collection, in as efficient a process as we can get it, for the best value that we can get it. And I would put this service that we offer to our citizens up against anybody, any community you care to look. We pick up about anything at the curb. We call it our No Trash Left Behind program or service. I will also tell you that once we get to the point where the current contract ends, the new contract begins, it will be painful. Mark my words. We've been through it before. So that's going to mean that we're all going to be taking phone calls and being asked what the heck's going on. And so we're committed to working through every bug that we can for our customers, for our ratepayers, for our citizens here at the city. I know, we have confidence in the company who has won the bid to do the same. And customer service has been a priority in the spec. And so we have hopefully some extra added features in the new contract that will assist in customer service reporting, not just as we go through the transition, but long after. So again, want to thank all the team members involved in this. We've got about, several months into it. We're about 10 months into this already, if not a lot more. And Matt Lynch will be up to talk about some of the more specifics of the program. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Mayor Wood? Mr. Benevolente.
Thank you again, Mr. President. Thank you, Mayor, for coming up and speaking on behalf. And I really do appreciate the comment that you've stated, no trash left behind, and I've actually have used that before in the past, and I've footnoted it, so I gave you credit. But I just wanted to see, after reading the contract and get your opinion, are we still going to be able to feel confident of saying that phrase, no trash left behind?
It's always our goal. You know, you'd be surprised at what people stick out at the curb. And so one way or another, you know, it's our goal to not have it become a neighborhood nuisance issue. Now, if everybody were to stick everything out all the time, that's not sustainable. And so, you know, 99% of our residents don't do that.
Right.
There are those outlying circumstances. We figure out a way to solve it.
Right. No, I appreciate that and totally understand it's not literal, but we have the confidence to say that we're very proud of what we've approved here, and just want to say that to our residents moving forward if this gets approved, so thank you.
Well, thank you. This is a service that directly impacts the cleanliness of our neighborhoods, and we all take great pride in that. I can remember the days when, gosh, we had the transition from one company to a new that brought a lot of complaints. We worked through it. It took a while. It took time to learn routes, to gear up, to get equipment, to get manpower, all that, those kinds of things. I also remember the days when we had trash bags marked with big orange X's in our alleys that stacked up for weeks or months at a time. So we know the importance of not letting things slip behind, because then it becomes a code enforcement issue, and then we're dealing with it from another department, not only just the calls to central services, why the heck aren't things getting picked up, but also now we're having to go through and fight that. So we will do everything in our power to make sure that no trash is left behind.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mayor Wood? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
President Hicksonball, honorable members of the Common Council, Matt Lynch, Executive Director of Development and Governmental Affairs, City of Mishawaka and Mishawaka Utilities. The first thing I want to say is we as a city, we as utilities have very high standards. And this is the only part of what we do in terms of the utilities in terms of the city that we farm out. And we spoil our citizens, whether it's electric, water, wastewater. You can count on the water be on when you turn the faucet. You can count on electric to go on when you flip the switch, and you can also count on the waste to be gone when you flush the toilet. But you know, as we looked at this, we didn't look just for somebody to pick up our waste, but we looked for a really deserving partner that would totally enhance the quality of life for our residents. And I believe that Waste Management fits that bill. They've really worked with us, and I would say they have met our challenges, our questions, and our asks very forthright, and have really come through. It's been a grind, but I think at the end of the day, we have, I believe, the very best agreement and contract possible to serve well the residents of Mishawaka. Let me just tell you why I think this contract and Waste WM is an excellent fit for the city of Mishawaka. First of all, they have a customer fit approach. WM is known for prioritizing customer service, which aligns perfectly with Mishawaka's emphasis on providing responsive, high-quality services to its residents. With a proven track record in addressing customer concerns swiftly, WM will ensure that the issues like missed pickups or service disruptions are resolved efficiently. Comprehensive services. The contract offers a range of services beyond basic waste collection, including weekly solid waste, recycling, bulky waste, and green waste collection. This broad scope ensures that all types of waste generated in the community are handled efficiently, minimizing the need for residents to seek additional services elsewhere. Thirdly, environmentally conscious solutions. WM has extensive experience in providing environmentally sound waste disposal and recycling services. Their commitment to sustainable practices are essential as Mishawaka looks to reduce its environmental footprint and continue its green initiatives. Fourth, enhanced convenience. WM's service model ensures all residential waste is collected on the same day of each week, simplifying the process for residents. Their introduction of 2 new 96-gallon carts for waste and recycling ensures standardized services and reduces potential confusion. Number 5, and we discussed this before, the mayor mentioned it, no trash left behind commitment. The contract's commitment to leaving no trash behind demonstrates a high level for cleanliness and attention to detail, which I think is paramount in the city of Mishawaka. And it really aligns with the city's goal of maintaining its neighborhoods and public spaces in tip-top condition. Our 6th is flexibility and accountability. The contract includes detailed provisions for handling additional waste, missed pickups, and overage, ensuring residents have clear guidelines and resources for service-related issues. The flexibility, I believe, is key to maintaining satisfaction with waste over time. And lastly, long-term partnership. With a 5.5-year, with a term of 5.5 years and options for extension, this agreement fosters a long-term relationship between WM and the city of Mishawaka, allowing for continued refinement and adaptation of services to meet the evolving needs of the community. Approving this contract, from my perspective, means securing a trusted partner with the infrastructure expertise and customer service oriented that Mishawaka deserves. The agreement ensures that the city is not just contracting for waste services, but entering into a partnership that enhances the quality of life for its residents. That's my presentation. I want to approach it from a 30,000-foot level. I'm going to invite, after I'm done answering questions, Chris Jamrose to get into the weeds a little bit, and then Waste Management representatives are here. John Rogman is here. Tim Ryan is here. We'd love to address any questions or issues that you have tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Lynch? Mr. Bernicki.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Very nice presentation. Since there's going to be an app for complaints or calls directly to Waste Management, right now the city knows kind of the complaints, the problems we have. Is there a system in place that we will get a report, whether monthly or quarterly, on the types of complaints that are made? So basically, we know that they're going to tell us everything's golden, but it may not be. So we need to be able to track if it is in fact doing well. Is there anything like that in place?
That is something we are having a conversation about, and that is something that we will work out definitively, yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah. Plus, I just want to add, people aren't shy about adding a complaint to the website or making a call to us if there's a problem. But you're right, that we should have that reporting, and we'll work with WM to make sure that we get that information.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mamalante.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Lynch. I know we've had this conversation in the past, but should this get approved, I highly recommend that the administration or anybody from the city side could work with WM and just kind of do a side-by-side and kind of educate our residents of what their old contract looked like versus the new contract, just in the simpler terms for yard waste. Yes, yes. Recyclable pizza boxes, yes, yes, et cetera. Just kind of give them a snapshot of things that may have changed or remain the same. It's just my recommendation.
No, that is something that WM does, and they're gonna be a terrific partner with this. And any communication that we do, we're gonna work together on so that we can talk about the similarities, the differences. Chris Jamrose will speak about some of that tonight, but we'll put that into a communication form and we'll get that out on the website and to our residents, social media, in any way possible that we can. I mean, it'll go into our information that we send out with statements as well. So there's a number of different ways that we can and will get that information, but we'll work hand in glove with WM to make sure that information is correct and done well and out to our residents. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that commitment.
Other questions from the council? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening. Chris Jamrose, 100 Lincoln Way West. And President Hicksonbaugh and honorable members, as you're aware, WM was the apparent most responsible bidder, and we discussed that at our informational meeting on September 16th. At this point, I just want to, we had a wonderful meeting then expressing lots of good questions, and I just want to go through and highlight the service, the level of service that our citizens are going to expect going forward with WM. The 96-gallon cart is meant to be commingled with refuse and green waste. That's the industry right now says commingling is the best way to handle it at the landfills, best way to handle it so you don't have more problems at the curb. So across the board, all three bidders, that was their impression, and they were hoping we would adhere to that, and we did. We put that in our bid. And so they also said at the end of the day it would save our citizens some cost. So I do believe that's the case, the way this has turned out. The second item, we did choose to do recycling. We gave it weekly and bi-weekly. At the end of the day, we decided to stay, I believe your opinion was, to stay with the same service that we have today, which is weekly. So the difference between the commingled waste and the recycling is that it's 2 large 96-gallon containers. Right now, out in our city, there you see a combination of 64. It could be 96. It could be a 64 for recycle. It could be 64 for waste. It's just it's a mess out there. So we're trying to standardize what we've got out there going forward. And the 2 large items, that's what we have today. That's what was included in the bid. It's basically, they call them bulky. We called them large, just semantics a little bit. Again, we kept it that way just so that you have a box spring and a mattress. You have a washer and a dryer. You have doubles. So we felt that that was the best way to have no trash left behind. So we kept that in place. The difference between the current plan or the current supplier and WM is that they do have a separate truck that will come around on the same day after, I don't know, maybe before, but they do, no, probably after, right?
Yeah, most likely be after, and the driver ahead will dispatch out to the bulky driver and pick up the bigger items.
So it will not stay on the curb. It will get picked up that same day. So again, very similar to what we have today, just a little bit different method. And you're also able to bundle, if you have limbs come down from a storm, you're able to bundle today, and we're continuing to have this as an offering. You bundle 6-inch diameter limbs in 4-foot lengths, and you put it next to the cart, it will be picked up. That's what we have today, that's what we will have going forward. You're also allowed, say you have a graduation party, or just that occasional yard waste. You are allowed 1 bag for overflow at no more than 40 pounds. It can go next to the cart. That going forward, we have, we're trying to keep sustainable, trying to keep the average citizen able to, they are able to only use, their waste seems to fit inside the 96-gallon. If you end up with more than that, say you have a much larger green yard waste, you have the ability to get a second cart if you wish. And they've also defined that value, and it would be between WM and the resident. It's very reasonable. If you are a senior, it's $7.39 a month. So that's a nice new added information that we didn't have at our last informational meeting. And if you're a regular basic rate, it's $9.24 a month to get that extra cart, so you don't ever have to worry about whether or not the animals get into your trash that's next to your cart. And I've gotten into the weeds probably deeper than you wanted me to. So at this point, Waste Management is here if you have questions. They would be willing, whatever it takes to make you feel comfortable about the situation and assist in your consideration. Did I get way deep into the weeds for you?
Thank you. Are there any questions for our city engineer? Mr. Mamonte?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jamrose. I'll kind of ask you the same question from an administrative standpoint, and then I'll ask WM the same question from an operational standpoint. Going back to the weekly or bi-weekly or bi-monthly, whatever that term is for recycling every other week, would it be possible from an administrative standpoint to have our residents have that option where they sign up for, I only want it twice a month, if the canister is designated with a sticker or a different lid, that they would only get it twice a month?
We're trying to keep the costs down. We're trying to standardize. To change out between biweekly and weekly, I think would be quite expensive and difficult from a dollar standpoint. We don't want to, we're trying to keep it down for our citizens. I think it would be, it's not included that way, just, we didn't do it that way. It's one or the other, it's not both.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mr. Violi?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your phone call today, and just to follow up on what we discussed, Chris, the bulk pickup, you said they have a separate truck for that, and we should make it clear that we, as a citizen, if we have bulk items, we need to call Waste Management. The driver's not going to drive by and see the bulk items and say, hey, come get the bulk items. Is that
And
correct?
We talked about that just recently, and it's kind of, in case they forget, it's the intent and no trash left behind, that the truck will also be able to radio for that.
Okay.
So it.
So it's changed from what we even
Well,
discussed earlier, a little bit.
It's, yes, as this is a transition plan, we don't even have that yet. These are the educational items that you had brought up. We have lots of things that we have to work out yet ourselves. And that piece of information, they said, yes, they had that ability to be able to make sure that we didn't have any trash left behind if they could call ahead from a truck standpoint or from the citizen letting them know. In both cases, they'll have an app, they'll have the telephone number to call and the driver, so.
And I know we discussed this at the informational meeting, that the WM trucks are going to have cameras, so if somebody says, hey, they didn't pick up my trash, but yet they didn't have it out, is there a fee if they call and say, hey, I forgot to put my trash out? Will WM charge that resident since they forgot, or is there no fee? And I don't know, what is the policy we have now? I don't know.
If they did not get it out,
Yeah.
then we don't go back,
Currently?
currently.
Okay.
And the trash trucks have 9 cameras? 9 cameras, so it
So
will
it'll
be
be the same,
documented.
it'll be the same provisions? Okay.
And I believe if there is a miss on the Waste Management, WM, sorry, I'm trying to get the WM part right, they have within the same day or 24 hours, unless it's on a weekend, or is it, okay, 24 hours. Okay.
So if a resident calls and says it was out and they check their cameras, they'll come out within 24 hours because it was their mistake
Yes.
and pick it up? Okay, thank you.
If I can interject for a moment, it's good information that's being shared from the floor, but it's better if it's shared at the podium so that it can be captured in the minutes and that it can be audible to the people who are participating remotely. So please don't lose that thought, but just defer and wait until you come to the podium to share that information. That's okay. Any other questions for Ms. Jamrose? Mr. Carroll?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not sure if this is the question for you, but again, the second district, and I'm sure some others have unique properties. We want to make sure that there's no disruption to folks' service who don't have access to the curb for their waste. So one, I want to make sure that that was agreed upon, and two, what does that process look like for somebody who may say, hey, the truck came by, didn't pick up anything? Who are they going to contact, and who's ultimately responsible for letting WM know that, hey, this is not a street where we can do that. You're going to have to get your person in this narrow alley.
Okay, I apologize. That was one of the first items I meant to cover. With part of the bid, we distributed day of service, and there are 3 locations in the city that are alley-only pickups. We didn't change any of those. They're the same they've been since 2008.
Right.
They are in the Milburn area. There are like 3 in the Milburn area. They're around the high school in the Linden area. There's 5 over there, and there are 3 up around the Grove area, which is across the river. Those folks that have their alley, or have their trash picked up in their alley, it will continue to be picked up in their alley. That was one of the requirements, just because those determinations back in the day were by grade or our width of the street. Just there are lots of reasons that we pared down to just those few alleys.
Sure.
Okay.
And then if there's any issue with that, who do we direct that towards? Is that going to be street department? Is that going to be engineering?
What do you, issue how?
Just if, for whatever reason, there is some issue, since we're changing companies, where maybe the truck didn't fit right, or they're doing it a different way, I know when we switched once before, when I lived
Okay.
on Gernhardt, there was an issue that we actually had to take to the city and saying, hey, they're not doing it the same way.
Mhm.
Who do we talk to?
That would probably be a combination between Tim Ryan and myself.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Volker.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Chris.
Hi.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if you're the right person to direct it to, but I've been looking through this, and I see under this Exhibit D, the list of exceptions or bid exceptions, and I'm a little confused by the whole list. Are these things that we talked about at our last meeting that have been clarified? I guess the one that I'm looking at, the second one, contractor takes exception to including commingled grass clippings, sod, earth, and rocks inside waste cart. Does that mean we can or cannot put grass in the cart? Does the exception mean that is not included in the contract, or does that mean that
Is
that was
Attachment D, Exhibit D.
Exhibit D, bid exceptions, that the one that I'm looking at right now, contractor takes exception to including commingled grass clippings, but Chris just said that we can commingle green wastes, what I would consider grass clippings,
That's exactly.
in the bin. So this seems to be, I don't understand why this.
Good catch. That was an extensive conversation regarding sod, rocks. They didn't want to have the, rocks. They don't want to have a container full of someone's rocks. They don't want a container full of glass, because glass is kind of, should be recycled. So the commingling of grass clippings in Michigan, I have a feeling this is still the Michigan hat of, he's going to get up and speak to that, I can see that already. The Michigan hat, Michigan does not let you commingle. They don't want you to commingle, where Indiana wants you to commingle. So grass clippings actually help the process.
I understand. So
Yeah.
to me.
So to me, that's,
There's a problem.
yes, to me, I agree. That's one of those that did not get caught.
The other thing that I was curious about is, it says down towards the bottom, revised 24 hours with by the end of the next business day. So are we saying that if there's a problem, it's going to be taken care of within 24 hours or by the end of the next business day? Because I think it's just confusing to me. I'm not sure what we
Kate,
mean.
if
The
you-
other problem that I have with this whole list of bid exceptions is I don't know where it corresponds to the agreement. So it's hard for me to find the exception in the agreement itself, because it seems like the sections don't match, how they're notated here, don't match with the document that I'm looking at.
Those exceptions are within the bid itself.
Okay.
That's how those got written. They were submitted with their bid.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess maybe we just need to take a look at this list of exceptions and make sure that what we expect is what they expect.
We had worked through all of them, to be honest with you. I apologize, I don't know how that stayed in there. Remember in our informational meeting that there was a difference between Michigan versus not
Right.
Michigan? Well, that's another one of those. I will let him speak to it. I have a feeling that's what that came from.
Okay.
Because right now, they want you can bag it in any way you want, and they would really prefer you to put it in the cart. And that keeps it collected in,
Okay. Okay. The other one, this is kind of funny, but I know that people put their dog waste in bags, in trash carts. And in here, it says that that's not acceptable. Are you just know that that's gonna happen, even though it's not acceptable?
Yes.
Okay. And then another thing I see in here is pesticides, and this might be under bulk, but it says that pesticides, insecticides, and similar substances are non-acceptable. It's under Exhibit C, bulk collection guidelines, but does that mean that you can't have it in the cart either? Is that an unacceptable item?
It is, because in most cases, pesticides.
Hey, Doug, I'm
Folks,
sorry.
folks.
Wait. Let's finish up, Chris.
Mr. Lynch?
Finish up, sorry.
Mr. Lynch? I got it.
Okay.
Let's finish with one speaker and one set of questions to one speaker, and then if there's going to be another speaker, we can pose that question to them. But right now, what we've got is a series of people coming to the microphone and a series of questions following, and I can only imagine how difficult it's going to be for our clerk's office to be able to take minutes of this, let alone how difficult it is for people online to follow this. So let's take a reset here, and let's ask questions of whomever's at the podium, and then we can ask questions of the next speaker when they want to come to the podium after that. Mrs. Volker, the floor is still yours.
Thank you. I apologize if I am asking.
No,
I'm not
you're doing
asking
fine.
questions correctly. The other thing that I wanted, and honestly, this is not questions for you, Chris, this will be follow-up questions. But I guess for me, just looking at this contract, I would really like to see those, that Exhibit D gone through really carefully before a contract is signed. Thanks.
I 100% agree with you. We did have attorneys sitting, there was a page and a half of exceptions when we started. Now we're down to 3/4 of a page. So,
But it
but
looks
no,
like.
you're absolutely right.
It looks like they're still
Yeah.
not coinciding.
Yeah.
Is it 24 hours? Is it the end of business day? Is it commingle? Is it not commingle? So I guess for me, you don't sign a contract until all the i's are dotted and t's are crossed. I'm not an attorney.
No, you're 100% right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for the city engineer? And Chris, let me echo the appreciation that was expressed to you and Mr. Lynch and Mr. Rogerman for the hard work that you did on this. I suppose Mr. Ryan as well. I'll work him in there somewhere. But I know you took a leadership role in this process and put a lot of time and effort into it, and we do appreciate the work that you put into this. One of the things that I know from prior conversations with you is that with regard to the bids, that you and others worked long and hard, the bid specifications rather, that went out to the world at large and that Waste Management and others responded to. If I understood correctly, those bids were written with the anticipation on the part of the city that the level of service that we currently enjoy as residents of Mishawaka would be maintained by whomever would be the successful bidder at the end of this process. Is that correct?
Correct.
And as we stand here this evening, is it the administration's position that WM meets that goal and that they are, if awarded this contract, going to be able to meet our service expectations for our residents with regard to this contract?
Yes, I do agree with that.
One of the other things I know from prior conversations with you that was important throughout this process was to generate some internal efficiencies with regard to the city's involvement in the trash and recycling contracts, so that whether it was Mr. Ryan and the people that work for him in central services, or the people who work for Mr. Lynch and with Mr. Lynch in the utilities department, that they weren't fielding as many of the day-to-day phone calls. Not that we don't want to know what's going on, but we hire an outside vendor for a reason, and we want them to be accountable for the actions that they take or don't take. So that also was a goal here to improve the internal service metrics so that we wouldn't have to do the job of the vendor as frequently as we have done over the course of time. Is that accurate?
That is very accurate, yes.
And do you believe that WM in their response also is hitting the mark with regard to their commitment to meeting those service requirements, not to the residents, but indirectly to the residents by virtue of how they interact with our administration.
I do agree with that 100%. In talking through all of the exceptions and understanding how the organization does work, they are very professional. You can tell that they are a publicly traded company, just with how they originally brought the informational website or portal. They said, well, we want to generate that just for Mishawaka, just to make the education, and if you have an issue or want to change out your cart because there's a wheel broken or something. They basically said, we do this, they do this for a living. And they were very forthcoming with some of their ideas to make it easier for our citizens. And so, yes, I absolutely agree with your comment.
Then, jumping back to some of Mrs. Volker's questions and her focus, which I think is well taken, on that Exhibit D, the bid exceptions. I believe you explained that those exceptions were WM's response to the bid specifications, not necessarily an exception to the contract language.
Correct. They are truly about the bid specifications. That's what
Okay.
those pages correspond to.
And it was my understanding, again, based upon some interaction with you and Mr. Rogeman, that the list that's reflected in Exhibit D, those are the bid exceptions, and tell me if I'm wrong, that reflect what the city was willing to agree to that then was incorporated in the contract language, but that there was a longer series of exceptions that through your interaction with WM, the city was unwilling to agree to, and those fell by the wayside. Is that accurate?
Correct. Those were stricken from the list of exceptions.
And again, if you want to defer to Mr. Rogeman on this, certainly I'm sure he wouldn't mind, and I will understand. But again, focusing on that Exhibit D, Exhibit D is reflective of concerns about the bid specifications that were expressed by WM, correct?
Correct.
But they may or may not, what those specifics set out in Exhibit D may or may not be reflected in the contract language, and it's the contract language that sets the stage for the outlines legally of our relationship. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct.
Is that your understanding? Mr. Triple, as our attorney, would you agree with the underlying factual basis within my question, that it's the contract language itself that would govern the relationship? Thank you. Sorry to drag you into law school, but I appreciate the clarification. And then, would you be the appropriate person for me to ask to try to address the cost that's going to be visited, that's going to be the result of the approval of this contract that will be paid by our individual residents, or is someone else going to be talking about cost?
Well, right now with we decided by your direction to go with the average cost over the 5.5 year as opposed to increment increases every year. So the average cost, if you do all the math, it comes up to, plus the fee for our billing each of our residents, which is very minimal compared to what the bid cost was. Your basic service is $21.69 a month. If you're a senior, that is reduced to $17.55 a month. And if you have an additional cart that you decide that this is something that is a benefit to your family, you can arrange for an additional cart at $9.24 directly with Waste WM, and that is for the basic service. And if you're a senior, that service is $7.39 per month. Again, billed directly between our citizen and WM.
So both our bids and this contract anticipate that WM would be our contractor for trash and recycling services for 5.5 years. Is that correct?
Correct.
So the amount that would be paid would not increase over the course of that 5.5 year term, correct?
Correct.
it's going to be that flat rate both for basic residential service and senior rate that you just articulated, correct?
Correct, and it is meant to be steady for the full 5 years, 6 months, which will expire June 30th of 2030.
Okay. And that's in fact our current relationship with our current trash and recycling vendor, is it not, that we have for many years now had that flat rate rather than fluctuations over the course of time during the course of a multi-year agreement?
Correct, it's been that way probably since 2008.
And if I remember the information that was shared at the informational meeting with us, that's becoming more and more of an industry trend. Isn't that our understanding?
In northern Indiana, in our communities, yes. In parts of Michigan, maybe not. But Indiana, yes.
So the numbers that you cited, both for the basic residential and for the senior rate, those are increases over the rates that our residents are currently paying, are they not?
They are.
And what are the rates that our residents are currently paying?
We are currently at $15.66 a month for our regular non-senior rate, and the senior rate is $12.74.
And if memory serves, those rates really have been in place for an extended period of time. My recollection is that it's at least 5 years, if not longer, that those current rates have been in place, have they not?
Correct.
And then our current vendor also responded to our bids, our bid specifications, didn't they?
They did.
So Republic Services responded to our bid specs. My understanding is that Republic, our current vendor, actually came in with the highest amounts that our residents would be asked to pay if they were to be awarded the contract. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. And would you like the value of the average?
Sure.
Their average for Republic, for basic, is $27.28, and the senior rate is $22.02 over the life of the 5.5-year contract.
So just to summarize, while admittedly WM's response anticipated a rate increase, Republic, our current vendor, responded with an even larger proposed increase if they were to maintain the service.
Correct.
And then with regard to the service itself, I believe that I'm on solid ground to say that most of us on the council have heard from all corners of the city about concerns regarding the level of trash and recycling pickup and service that we've received, probably going back a year or more, from our current vendor. Has the administration received similar concerns with regard to the quality of service as a result of our current vendor?
Yes, we have. Many offices have heard complaints. I will let Tim Ryan share most. He's usually ground zero, and so is our utilities office. Either one of those folks could speak more detailed about that, but I too have gotten them.
Okay. Again, I want to thank you for the hard work that you've done on this and your patience with us this evening as we have asked you multiple questions. But I appreciate the information that you've shared. Any other questions? Mrs. Volker?
Thank you. Sorry, just a second, Woody. Just a real quick one. Chris, first, I want to apologize. I know I'm really direct in the way I ask questions. I wish I was softer, but it's not in my, I need to be better about that. So my questions to you certainly don't reflect any lack of appreciation for the hard work that you and everybody does to put this together. So I apologize if I was too direct. I do have one little question, though. I'm looking at the two. One, what is the age of senior?
65.
Okay.
65.
And that's the same as it was with the
Yes.
last contract?
Yes.
So I'm looking at the ancillary fees, and I'm just wondering if there's a mistake. It doesn't make sense to me that a senior additional cart would be $9.70, I know the average is $7.39, but in year one, the senior additional cart is $9.75, In year two, it's $7.02.
It's a typo.
730, 759, 790, 821. Why does it start at 975?
That's something you're going to have to ask WM folks.
Okay, thank you.
Then realize, if you look at the math, they've averaged over the years to get to the $7.39.
Right, I understand that, but
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense for it to start at 975 and then drop to 702. Because none of the ramp up for all the other services starts low and goes up. But that's just one where it starts high, then drops down, then ramps back up again. So, all right.
Yep.
I'm sure they'll tell me why. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Volker. And for the record, I thought your questions earlier were very appropriate, so no need to apologize.
Yeah.
Mr. Emmons?
Agreed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chris, did I hear you right that when you put out the specs for them to bid, that you wanted them to continue the service that our residents have enjoyed over the years with our present contractor? Is that correct?
Continue to, I'm sorry, to continue to do what with our residents?
Provide the same services that we've expected right now with our with our recent contractor. About the same services,
The same,
not deleting any services.
the same services, no trash left behind, yes, but the services are going to be different. If I did exactly the same services, we would be at the $27, the value that Republic put in. I was trying to keep our increase down by having the standard typical 40-foot lot that we have throughout the city. They are a small enough lot that they wouldn't generate the yard waste, the green waste that you do on the larger lots. Going through the city, most of our citizens would be easily able to use the 96-gallon without having any extra. And by keeping the standardized size, that makes the pickups mechanical. That keeps the cost down. Every time you can do a mechanical collection, the costs are more beneficial from our standpoint as a citizen. The increases wouldn't go up as much. So I can, that's what I've learned talking to all of these servicers before I was putting the specs together. That's why it was written the way it was. Just trying to keep this something that we can handle.
I appreciate that, but I'm confused at some of the things that was in the first proposal to what it is in the contract, and I haven't had time to go through this whole contract
Okay.
because I just got it today at 2 o'clock. And so I'm not basically familiar with everything that's in it. I have noticed a few things that I heard at the last meeting from these gentlemen that's not true to this proposal, and I'm concerned about that. When I asked about an extra container, and they said, fine, yes, we can dump it. Now, in the contract, it says, no, you're gonna be charged for it. Now, what is the difference of having 3 carts versus 2 carts and putting out trash bags? I don't understand that. I mean, to me, it's more work for the company to get out of the truck, pick it up, throw it in, and dump it. Especially in inclement weather, when you set out these bags, canvas bags or paper bags, and they get wet, and they go to pick them up, and the trash goes right all over the street. I don't understand how that is more convenient for them than just dumping another trash container with the arms that they use on their trucks. I mean, I'm confused because I asked that question point blank to them, and they said, yes, we can dump it, and we can have a 3rd container, and we'll dump it. So I'm confused from what I'm reading here to what they told me at the last meeting. So I'm just trying to get that clarified.
The bid was 1 container, 196 waste and commingled container, and the occasional one overflow bag at 40 pounds. That was the bid,
Yes.
okay?
Well, I'm confused because he didn't answer that way. He didn't say anything about that. He said, sure, we can dump that container for you. So that's why I'm trying to get clear, because there's other people that have that
Okay.
other container.
In the discussions, it was the mechanical would lift it up, dump it, bring the mechanical down, then they would take whatever bag is there, put it in the trash can, and bring it up and dump it. But you don't want to have that become perpetual. That's when the extra cart comes into play. And if it's, if you have 15-yard waste bags and you're always, all over the city with your trash because it's blowing around, then yeah, you do need to get an extra cart.
Because I pick up my grass clipping, and there's no way I can put them in one bag.
You might be one of those categories. I'm being point blank. We try to keep this as lean as possible because the majority of our citizens have the smaller footprint of a lot. This keeps grandma from subsidizing the larger lots.
I mean, I don't mind paying to have the extra container, trash container, plastic, or whatever you want to call it, and that, to where I can put my yard waste in and have it dump it, so I don't have to use bags,
Perfect.
And I have one that is my personal container that I bought, and I just put it out with the other containers, and the other company just went ahead and dumped them.
And you can speak to Waste Management about that. I am told that equipment is not the same. You can't, they are trying to keep people safe. Their worry is when you don't use their special or their equipment, something could come loose, it could fall on someone as they lift it. So that's why they have their own container. And that's why they provided a value for that extra, defined that value for that, if you are in that category for needing an extra can. You're a senior, Woody, you'll be in the $7 range.
I mean, I don't mind that. I'm just trying to get clarified for what I was told at the last meeting versus what's in the contract.
Okay.
And that. And so what I do, I will want another container because I'm not going to put my grass clipping in a bag. And that is just too hard.
I think that's great.
So, and I fill basically a container that I have, I cut my yard.
Okay.
And that, so it's clarified that if I use their container, they will dump 3 containers every week. I mean, I'm just asking if that's true.
It's additional cost.
Pardon?
It would be an additional
I
cost.
understand that. I'm
And
just saying
yes.
that if I have 3 containers out there, that they will be dumped, or anybody has 3 containers out there, that is their container, or whatever, that they will be dumped. Okay. Now, what I'm just saying is, why, if I have to pay to have a container dumped, and yet the person that puts out a bag or 2 bags, and they're not paying anything more, and it's more work for them to get out of the truck, pick up the bags, put them in the dumpster, then go back in the truck and dump them. I don't understand why you'd be charging other people more for a single dump versus 2 or 3 dumps.
We've defined the one bag because there's that anomaly that somebody could have a graduation party. That's why we did that, just so that if something that is perpetual, then yes. And we defined the perpetual as 3 out of 4 weeks of more than the one bag to try to level the playing field.
Yeah, I'm just saying is, when you get the leaves, people bag them, and you're gonna have more than one bag out there. And that they could have 4 or 5 bags, where they pick those up without charging. I mean, what I'm trying to get at is, our present contractor doesn't charge no matter how many you have out there. They're not getting an extra charge. But yet now, no matter what we put out there, if we don't stick directly to a certain amount of bags weekly, and that, we're gonna be charged.
Okay, just Kicks, remember our present contractor bid at $27.28.
Yeah. But what I'm just saying is you put it in the bid that you wanted the kind of same type of service that we were used to. That's all I'm getting clarified,
Well,
Chris.
the difference
And the
is,
people have come to expect certain things of all the trash being picked up, not being charged for if they have 10 bags versus 1 bag.
and we hit the nail on the head earlier, that transition and the transition plan and the education is key. And to let our citizens know that we are fiscally have them in mind here. This keeps the regular 40-foot lots, 44-foot lots in something that is a reasonable price for trash collection. The larger folks with
So
we've
you- so
defined
you-
what the totes could be.
So you're penalizing people that have larger lots. Is that true?
If you don't mulch, you could have, but I would,
I
people
don't
mulch, some
And
people don't.
I've got a lot and a half or lot and 3/4.
Yeah.
Plus I have the alleyway that was.
You have a beautiful lot, if I recall.
So I'm just asking, if all the prices were based on just the small lots, then the people that have larger lots within the city are being penalized because they're gonna have to pay more because of their yard grass clippings or tree trimmings or whatever. That's all I'm just asking. And I just want the clarification because of what they said and what you said, and now in the contract is totally different. So, and like I say, I haven't had time to read the whole contract and that because I have some concerns from what I read here. I read their whole contract and I made notations from what they said at the meeting, from what's in here and from what I've read so far in this contract. So I just have some concerns, that's all. But I appreciate what you've done, Chris, and working on it because it was time consuming. You put a lot of effort into it and I really appreciate that because nobody wants to do a contract with this type of bid and everything. And so I appreciate all your work and that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Maramolenti.
Thank you. I don't know where I fabricated this, but years ago, I thought I remembered that our current vendor contractually will only pick up the bin, nothing around it. Am I incorrect in that? And they've just been doing that? So
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
They have a different, right now they have a front bin that runs that's low, so that their driver or secondary person that rides with them gets out and can dump whatever's there in that low bid. You run in, and then at some point it gets full enough that they pick it up and dump it at the back of the truck.
Right.
Then-
But contractually, they're not required to pick up
They are
additional
not.
bags. They're only required or obligated to just pick up our bin. They've just been, they know who Woody is and they pick them up.
Yes,
Thank you.
he has a beautiful yard.
Thank you, Mr. Maramolenti.
Thank you.
Mrs. Volker.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment, because I was talking about all these extra bins too at our informational meeting. And we have a large yard. And another way to look at it is that I don't think that that as a homeowner, we will be penalized to get a third bin. In all honesty, the 40-foot lots have been subsidizing me with a large lot. So in all honesty, it makes more sense for somebody with a large lot like we have to pay our fair share.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll get a third bin.
Mr. Violi.
I was going to just follow up on Kate's. I also noticed the 975. I think that's just a typo. I did the math. I think it's supposed to be 675. I just wanted to throw that out there. I noticed it too, Kate.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Carroll.
I'd just like to say I had 2 cents off, Tony, so we're going to start a pool.
It was 2 cents off, you're right.
Any other questions for the engineer? Again, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Doug Reams. I'm the area sales manager for WM for Michigan, Ohio, Indiana. Our business address is 20645 West Ireland in South Bend, Indiana. Certainly, thank you for all the questions and clarifications that you've expressed tonight. We are excited about starting this contract, and with your approval, we are positioned with really new trucks, with new containers, with the technology we talked about in the informational meeting to set up a local website to really provide the citizens and the residents of Mishawaka that access and accessibility to ensure that they have the best solution that's available. We will also work with the city and the departments to work on a transition plan to provide educational material, not only at the cart level, the resident, social media, and we have those vehicles in which we can do that very easily. So we are well equipped to start and start this contract in January if approved. So I'll be open to answer any questions that the council may have and certainly express any concerns you may have as well.
Thank you. Questions from the council? Ms. Hahn.
When you talk about the education piece, can you give me an example of something you've used in the past?
Sure.
For example, do you do like a one-sheeter, and if you're mailing that, is that going to be a cost you incur? Is that billed back to the city? Just what are some of the
Sure. Some of the things we've done in the past, and we can certainly customize it for any city. We have that capability to do so. We've done cart hangers. So as the carts are delivered, the cart hanger gives an informational guidelines to the resident, kind of a before and after scenario snapshot. We've done social media events where we put that on Facebook and share that with the city and provide that level of detail. In addition to that, we'll put that on our website, and we will have a widget that will link to our website that'll be the actual local page for the city of Mishawaka. So those are a couple of examples we've done. We've done informational flyers where we mail them out to the residents. We can do it really at your leisure. What we found, the best solution is the cart hanger, because it goes with a cart and it goes to the resident's address, where if it gets mailed specifically, and a lot of times people don't read the mail, so therefore it goes in the junk pile or it goes in the recycling. So the social media and the cart hangers are probably the best opportunity for us to communicate directly with our residents.
That cart hanger, is that something that is something that somebody could keep and hang on their fridge, or is that just going to be, so it's going to be like a card stock maybe, or
Card
laminate
stock
where
that'll
they
be
could
available,
keep
and
that?
it'll be in a kind of a plastic container, so
Okay.
it's away from the elements. So if it's raining, as an example, in January or snowing, they'll
And
be able
that's
to have.
all included in the contract and the bid? That's not going to be an additional cost to the
No,
city? Okay.
it's all part of our program.
you.
And prior to the contract start date, we'll share their transition. We gave a sample transitionary plan to the team already, but we'll fine tune that and get that in place prior to the contract start date.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll.
Just, if you do have the numbers today to break the suspense on what should the first year be?
First year is, there was a typo. You're absolutely right. It's the average price on the senior rate, if that's what you're referring to. So it's the $739 is the set average rate for the senior rate.
Do you know what the first year cost will be?
I can get that for you, and we'll get that back. It is a typo there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. We apologize.
Mrs. Volker.
Thank you. I just wanted to piggyback on what Ms. Hahn said. Some trash cans, or recycling particularly, I'm thinking about, and I don't know what company does it, maybe it's you. They actually have like a label on the top of the bin that shows what can and can't. Is that something you guys do?
It is. Will be part of our proposal and part of our bid. It will be hot stamped into the top of the lid, so residents will actually see what can and can't be recycled in the preparation to get that
Okay.
guidelines.
Yeah, I was so, you talk about people not reading and throwing things away. For me, pictures. Like, I'm going through this list of things that are, you can and cannot. I don't know what a polystyrene thing is. You know what I mean?
Sure,
I think I
sure.
do, actually.
Yeah.
But not everybody does, so, or they don't take the time to think about it. So pictures, I think,
Yeah,
You guys know better than me, but.
Yeah, our recycle bins will be yellow lids, and the other ones will be green. So the trash will be green, the yellow will be the recycled materials, and inside that, it'll be hot stamped in there. It'll tell the do's and don'ts, for example, no plastic bags. That's not a recyclable item, it gets into our material, it gets into our systems, and actually ruins our equipment. So we're trying to eliminate those as best we can. But yes, we'll have that part of this proposal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just one question. I'm interested in what this transition is going to look like. I don't know if you can share it with us yet, but are we going to have 4 bins sitting outside our house, which, we may have to have that, and for how long, or do you have any clue?
Sure. We are, right now, we're working on it. We had already had an initial call with our cart vendor. So we utilize a company called Cascade Engineering. Cascade Engineering actually utilizes an eco-cart, which is made out of recyclable material. So we already kind of have that sustainable function that's in place. So we will start that transitionary plan in mid-December to have that cart delivered and work with the current provider you have to get those carts removed. So ultimately, our plan is to have all carts delivered before the first of the year. So we start fresh on the first of the year, on the first service day. And again, you can certainly understand you're going to have a holiday in the middle of that. So we'll have a Wednesday holiday, which is your Christmas, and the Wednesday for the New Year's holiday will be right in the middle of the week. So we'll take those into account. Our vendor will do that. He'll have a staging area, they'll have staging areas throughout the city that we can provide that with the city departments. And they will have crews that will deliver those carts within 2 weeks. So we'll deliver roughly 28,000 carts in 2 weeks. These are big deployments. We've done them before. The one we just recently did from our cart vendor, they just did a 56,000 home community in Illinois. So they do this for us throughout the 3 states and along the states that we do. So we do this quite also all the time. Along with that, they have a system they call CartLogic, where they actually have physical addresses in hot stamps with RDFI codes of every home that they deliver to. So if there's ever a question where somebody's away for the holidays or away for their home from a snowbird perspective, we can tell where that cart was delivered and when it was delivered and what time it was delivered.
Mr. Carroll.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up to Mrs. Volker. When you're talking about hot stamping and all that and talking about prohibited items, are you going to work in conjunction to use this as an opportunity to let people know where they can take their materials that you don't want? I mean, most people probably, if you ask them, have no idea that just down the street they can go dump a TV or a can of gasoline or whatever it is. Is that an opportunity here?
Sure, we can look at that. I don't know if we'll put it part of hot stamp, but we can certainly put that as part of the local website with attachments that will showcase really opportunities to recycle their materials.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we can customize the local website, not only to have kind of the requirements of the contract and what we're going to provide to the residents, but also other informational that if you want added to it, we can put that to it as well.
Yep, I'd love to see that. Thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Mamalante.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you both for coming here in person this evening. I have a comment and a question. And I know the mayor had alluded to this earlier, and I think we all kind of expect the same. It to be kind of a little clunky at first. My comment is, I guess, ask for some grace from some of our residents. If there is pile up and there happens to be multiple bags outside for the first week or so, just give us some grace as this transition continues. My next question, I think I had asked you in the informational meeting with the app, the phone app. You'll be able to do push notifications, correct?
We will. If the resident signs up for those type of events, we can do push notifications, yes.
And is it possible, and would you be willing to, prior to holidays, do a push notification? I know I receive a lot of questions every holiday. Is trash coming tonight? Trash coming or tomorrow? And you would think I would know, but I don't, and I just kind of look out and see if my neighbors have it out.
Sure.
So if that could be done, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, part of our initiative, what we do is we all do an out dial campaign on every holiday that's out there, because we understand that residents may forget that we'll be a day behind because of the holidays, an example. So we do push notifications already, and usually we do an outdoor campaign to help with that. Our call center, the one that will service your area, we manage right now about 26,000 calls a week that come through that call center right now, and we manage it through a big team that has that, which also has the reporting capabilities to manage customer requests. So if in fact there are complaints that happen that call into from Mishawaka, we can detail that for the Mishawaka team and have them access to those type of things that happen.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Violi.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, Chris answered a lot of my concerns earlier, and I'm sure all of us as council members. My other concern then would be the transition that we're talking about. And Chris and I had a discussion. So I'll ask you, do you have drivers ready, or are you going to be trying to hire drivers from Republic, or how's that going to look, and will that muddy the waters in the transitional period?
We have already started the hiring process to kind of and prepare for this. We're always looking for new talent. So if there are Republic drivers that would like to apply, we certainly will welcome that. They go to wmcareers.com and apply online, and we go through that hiring process. We do have the trucks in place. We're moving those trucks around to this facility. It will be for Mishawaka available, and we will be ready to go with hiring and staffing available.
So you're ready, you're confident that that phase of the transition, you're going to be okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Again, like the mayor mentioned earlier, all transitions are a little bumpy sometimes.
Of course,
and we express your patience, but ultimately, we've done this before, and we're confident we can.
Well, like Matt said, we want patience with our residents, and we will extend you the same courtesy.
Yep, absolutely. And our call center, as I mentioned earlier, we have really kind of a customer board that shares all the requirements and the contracts of each one of our communities, including Mishawaka. So all of our agents that will be answering your calls will have that information at their fingertips. So therefore, they will have that information and make sure to express what is in the agreement, and very professional in doing so.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Emmons.
Thank you. For people that want a third container, how does they go about getting those so that they can be dropped off when the other two containers come?
And, excuse me, and just to clarify, an extra container, you mean? Like, they want one container or an extra container, or switch out on a container that's broken?
Pardon?
Is it a switch out the container that's broken, or is it an extra container? I want to make sure I answer your question appropriately.
Well, what I'm saying is I have 3 containers, and I understand that there's a charge. So when your trash company comes in, I'd like to have the same service that I'm having now. And there are other people in the city that have the same thing, that they have 3 carts out. So when the other company comes in, they'll pick up their 2 carts. The other cart is mine. I bought that. So if we have to have your carts, and that, how do we sign up so that when you deliver your carts, that I get my 3 carts, and anybody else that needs 3 carts?
Yeah, we'll call our call center, and they'll set up that service for you and get that cart established and delivered right to your home.
Okay. So anybody that wants a 3rd cart can have it?
Correct.
As long as they understand that there is a charge. That is
There's a
correct.
charge, and they'll have to set up the service and call into our call center, and our agents will take that information and set up that account for you, yes.
Okay, so we got to call your company.
Correct.
And when does that start to do that?
Right after the start date of the contract in January.
Thank you.
Sure.
And then one other question here. You said that yard waste must be bagged and not weigh more than 40 pounds. Is that per bag?
Per bag, yes.
Okay, so and then you said will be collected out curbside each week of your basic trash pickup. So what happens if you have 4 or 5 of those 40-pound bags out there? Now, is that customer going to be charged for that?
According to the agreement that we have, that we've talked with Chris and with Matt, we'll collect 1 extra bag.
Well, I'm just going by what you said when you made your initial. I'm just trying to digest that.
Yeah,
and
we're,
see.
we're going off right now the contract, the agreement that's in front of you as we speak, which is 1 extra bag, really, that's going to be outside of the cart that we'll collect.
Okay, got a question for you. I know you're interested in having this contract voted on so that you can get started. What happens if it was delayed for, 2 weeks? what kind of problems would that cause, or would it cause any problems?
We would prefer to have it as soon as possible to give us enough timing to continue. But as we spoke with the staff here, we would still be okay in the transition if it went in Bush to the 28th.
Well, the reason I ask that is because I haven't had a chance to read your contract now that you proposed. I just got it today, and I'm sure there's other people on the council, members that haven't had the time to digest this because it was just published, and our president just got it Friday and that. And so I'm kind of leaning to say that we postpone this until our next meeting. And that's, I'm just asking if that would cause your company any problems of getting up and running on the date that you stated in your contract that you would start picking up the trash.
Not ideal, but we would understand that, and we would certainly be prepared even if it was voted on the 28th.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Other questions? Mr. Carroll?
Just a real quick one. Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned that trucks were different in that they're loading from the side rather than the front. Does that create a width issue for these compared to the Republic trucks?
No, same width issue, same arm that goes out on the side. What we found with the side loading trucks, a couple things that are beneficial to the community. We don't see the amount of spillage that occurs because it goes right up the top and it's actually condensed. So therefore, you're not seeing that wind that goes over it like you see in the front load trucks that are like that, the Corrados they call them. So that's why we utilize that. And specifically, when you're utilizing recycling, we're asking the residents to put it in loose. So therefore, that's why we go to the automated side loaders for that reason.
Yeah. And the main reason I bring that up is just because those alleys that you will be responsible for are very, very narrow, especially in the winter.
Yeah.
As long as that doesn't create an issue, you're going to be within about a foot of the garages that are up against
We
the
will be
alley.
very close. You'd be surprised what our drivers can do. And
I was impressed every week.
No, and our district manager has already assessed and gone through all the alleys here for Mishawaka. So our operations team has assessed the capabilities of those
Wonderful.
areas.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions?
I got one more question.
Mr. Emmons?
Thank you, Mr. President. On your vehicles, when they pick up the trash, is there an arm that comes out, or is it just that goes up in hooks to dump the containers?
It's actually both. The arm does go out, and then it clamps on the container, like a big, huge arms that go
Yeah.
through, and then picks it up and goes up and picks it up.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? And gentlemen, I appreciate your patience with us and the information that you've shared, and I'll also acknowledge your willingness to listen to what we had to say at the informational meeting and reflect in the contract that's in front of us some changes from the original draft that you put together, so that does not go unnoticed. So I want to try to do just a quick summary, since we've had a lot of conversation and a lot of back and forth, and I'm going to need your help to do this, but I want to try to hit the essentials of what trash and recycling service will look like for our residents if this contract is approved. So effective January 1st of 2025, if we partner with you. As was referenced by Chris Jamrose earlier, the rate for trash and recycling service would increase to $21.69 per month as the basic rate. And I want to talk about what people are going to receive for that $21.69 per month. In general, they're going to receive weekly trash and recycling services, correct?
Correct.
And they're going to have two bins, two 96-gallon bins that they'll have available to them to put out in front of the curb of their house or in the alley for those three areas that we're going to maintain alley service, correct?
That is correct, yes.
With regard to the trash removal, in addition to that 96-gallon bin that they're going to be able to put out to the curb or in the alley, residents are also going to be able to use or put one bag of additional refuse, no more than 40 pounds each week, correct?
Correct.
Residents would also have the ability to have, on a weekly basis, two bulk items. And think of, a bookcase, some furniture, a couch. Am I hitting the, is that an accurate description?
That is correct, yes.
So I can put two of those bulk items out each week on the day that my trash is going to be picked up, correct?
Correct.
One question I have, I was a little bit unclear of this. Do I have to call you in advance for that bulk pickup? Or are you either going to, is your truck that picks up my trash then going to call back and dispatch another vehicle to pick up that bulk item?
We will dispatch the vehicle to pick up the bulk.
So I don't have to call in advance, that'll be taken care of. My obligation is just to put that bulk item out to the curb.
Correct.
And then with regard to the grass clippings that we talked about, I know in the contract it says I can't put boulders, I can't put, concrete, I can't put things of that nature, but my grass clippings, if I want to commingle or mix my grass clippings in with my garbage, I can put that in that same bin, and that can be pushed out to the curb each week, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And then if I have that overflow, I still have that extra bag, no more than 40 pounds, that I can put out as well, correct?
That is correct.
And the only limitation that I see in the contract with regard to that commingling or anything that's an allowable bit of refuse that I'm going to put in my container is that it can't be 2 times the capacity of that 96-gallon container. And there was a really good definition in here of that. I want to say it's like 192 pounds.
That's right.
So as long as I can get it in that container and it's not in excess of 192 pounds, I can mix my grass clippings in with my trash. I can put my trash in there and I can get it out to the curb, and you're going to take it away for me.
That is the capabilities of our arm to pick up the material, correct.
Fantastic. So is that an accurate 30,000-foot overview and summary of what our residents would enjoy in terms of their service if we approve this contract with you?
Agreed, not only with the additional technology that we will provide to the residents for kind of self-service and having utilization of our call centers.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate your help in summarizing that. Thank you. Any additional questions for these gentlemen? Mr. Violi?
I'm sorry, and I just want to make sure. I mulch my grass, but just to make sure, grass clippings, they can be loose in the container.
Yes.
Thank you. Just to make sure. Thank you.
Mr. Carroll?
Very brief. With things happening, you're a large company, when you do have something that could be a natural disaster, flooding, tornado, that type of thing, you do work with communities and abandon the 2 rule of people have to take out entire things. Will you work with the city in a scenario like that?
Yeah, absolutely. We have what's known as a green team, and what green teams do is actually dispatch out for national disasters, like Milton down in Florida. We have a number of our trucks and drivers that are actually going to Milton, down to that area to help service for the hurricane. So if something were to happen here, we would be able to do that and dispatch. That's the beauty of having a large company. We have multiple 55,000 employees that can kind of rent them and get that service provided.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mrs. Volker?
Thank you. Just one other thing. I'm kind of curious about it because I've seen it advertised before, but we haven't talked about it today. And I don't think that it was available to us. I don't think it's available with our current contractor, and that's the Bagster program. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works?
Bagster program is unique to WM, and it's a dumpster in a bag is really what it represents. It's a bag that you can buy at any of the local hardware stores, Home Depot, Lowe's. It's $29.95 for the bag. And it's really meant for small cleanup or projects like renovation projects that are out there, as opposed to the big roll-off dumpster you may see. This is a dumpster that actually will hold 3,000 pounds. You can set it out by your curb or in your driveway. And we have a truck that's really similar to our bulk truck that picks it up and lifts it up and puts it away. So that's all done online. There's a QR code that's established that's in the literature. When you buy the bag, that actually will go to our website. It'll give you the kind of the collection cost to service it, and you can schedule when you want it to be actually scheduled. So if you're doing what we've done in other cities like yours, we've used it for kind of either special projects, code enforcement has been another project we've done it for, where people are getting evicted from a home and utilized with the departments to help with eviction projects and those type of things that'll help with those things. We can give those to the city. They can then in turn do it out, then actually schedule the service that's out there. But that is available now in Mishawaka. We just opened up that area just recently, and now it's available for South Bend and the surrounding areas here.
Just a follow-up question. If we were to continue our current contract, would that program be available? Could you still buy that?
You can.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
not specific to the contract, it's really another product offering that we have
Okay,
here.
thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
Great, thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the proposed resolution? Please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? Mr. Emmons?
Thank you, Mr. President. Since the people from Waste Management says that if we would delay this for a couple of weeks, that it would not cause them any dire problems, I'd like the motion that we postpone the vote on this waste contract until the next meeting, which is in end of October.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Just to
Thank you.
give our fellow colleague some opportunity to dig more into the contract that he had just received. Want him to feel as comfortable and confident moving forward, to get all his concerns addressed.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to postpone further public hearing and action on the proposed resolution in front of us until our regularly scheduled council meeting of October 28th of this year. Any additional questions or comments from the council? Then I'll echo Mr. Mamiletti's comments. I'm prepared to move forward with this evening, but it's long been my practice that if a colleague has the desire to, in the short term, have more time to process the information, then I'm willing to support that. But I do think that time is of the essence here, and that one way or the other, we need to vote on this on October 28th in order to allow for the best possible transition. So while I'll support this evening, my hope would be that we could take this to a vote at our meeting on October 28th.
I have no problem with that.
And if there are no additional questions or comments, I will call for the question. On the motion to postpone.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Ms. Han?
Yes.
Mr. Mammalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Passes
The
9
ayes
to
have
0.
it, so the matter will be postponed until our meeting of October 28th. Given the hour at this point, the chair would entertain a motion to recess for 10 minutes before we resume with ordinances on second meeting.
So moved.
We are recessed for 10 minutes. We'll reconvene the regularly scheduled meeting of the Mishawaka Common Council for October 14th, 2024, and move into ordinances on second reading.
We have proposed ordinance 2024-24. This is the civil city budget for 2025. It's a public hearing, no vote.
Thank you. With that, we will open the public hearing on proposed ordinance 2024-24. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council, Rebecca McGuire, City Controller. This is the culmination of our budget process for 2025. Just want to thank Council Budget Committee, all our department heads, Deputy Controller, Taylor Yoder, and all the work that everyone's put into this collaborative process. I'm just going to go through some slides that kind of do an overview, like I did last year, of how we get to our budget numbers for 2025. So for the budget process, as you can read, early July, we do estimates on revenue. We receive budget requests from the departments. We compile a draft budget. We have individual meetings with the mayor. We work on our personnel services and benefits. Early September, we meet the council budget committee. And then the mayor and I meet and we kind of finalize, fine-tune things. And some years we are working in different union negotiations as well into the process. So for what the state requires, they require an 18-month budget, which begins with our figures on June 30th. Our expenses include what's left of the current year's budget left to spend, plus next year's budget, and then we have to add in the estimated circuit breaker loss. For revenue, we begin with cash balances at June 30th. We add the miscellaneous revenue that's left to receive for 2024, the current year, the estimated tax collection, and then next year's estimated miscellaneous revenue. So with those numbers, we get funds required, less funds available, and those are the funds that we are needing to raise. So we calculate a tax rate. And we have many funds that we budget, but only 4 receive property tax revenue. The general fund, motor vehicle highway, park, and cumulative capital development. For 2025, circuit breaker, which is our property tax caps, they're estimated to go to 9 million, just over 9 million. And here is where we come up with our actual tax rate. So the amount to be raised is called the levy, and we take this year's levy, which is in green, the 36 million. We multiply that times our growth quotient. The state gives us our growth quotient, which is 4%. It used to be a formula, and the legislators have locked it in for the last 2 years at 0.04. So we are actually not earning as much new money as we could have. So hopefully that doesn't continue. That is a hindrance of reducing our new money. So with that figure, the 37 million, we add our cumulative capital fund estimated property tax, which is set at the rate of 0.05. That's why it's added on. With that new levy number, you divide it by our assessed value for 2025, and then we multiply it times 100, and that is what I expect our tax rate to be for our citizens for 2025. Small increase over 2024. So let's remember that number, the 1.966. On the next slide, in the budget process. We have to input all this information into the state gateway site, the portal. But what we do, we reduce our net assessed value. So our tax rate that is submitted to the state is higher than what we're estimating it to be. And the information in yellow is directly from the state instructions. We want to make sure we overinflate our tax rate, so we make sure we bring in as much revenue as possible. So I'm going to go back a slide. So I'm submitting 3.16 to the state, but our calculation, what I expect is the 1.966. And how I get to the 3.1, when we look at our assessed value of 1.9 billion, I just reduced that in the state submission. I reduced that net assessed value by at least 20%. And when you reduce that number, it increases the ending result of the 3.1674. Then we go on to our budget meetings. This is our second reading and public hearing. And everything has to be completed by November 1st. That is state statute. So here is a, excuse me, summary of our general fund last year versus this year, and the percentage of change, and also the percentage of what each department of the entire general fund covers. So I'm going to go over some of these larger changes. Not a lot of major significant changes, except we'll see a lot in positions and wages. You'll see next meeting when we have second reading on the salary ordinance, most of Civil City is at 3.5% increase. Wages that are over 3.5%, most of the department heads, the controller department, council, central services and MVH, and fire with their new contract. These are the exceptions to that 3.5%. We added a few new positions which account for the increase in a few departments. Human resources, we have the safety director position in that department now. It was in the electric department, but it makes more sense to have it in the general fund. In my department, we added an additional position of bookkeeper. Previously I had 2 additional full-time people, but through attrition, retirement, we did not replace those positions. With all the increased construction, with the bonds and the different funds, and just the different activities that are going on in the city, we had to just have another person so we can get all hands on deck and help spread some of the work around. And in planning, we have budgeted for an additional associate planner. Also, there are some new and/or updated certifications and stipends in these 5 departments: clerk, controller, council, HR, and planning. In redevelopment, they actually have a reduction in their budget. We removed the TIF construction manager. That position had not been filled for quite a few years, so we really didn't need it in the budget any longer. And across all funds, we increased our health insurance. While our claims have stayed pretty steady, we have multiple programs that have increased our costs, and so it's necessary to contribute more to our health insurance costs. And some of those include our prescription program for Sharks, our imaging and procedure program, which is the KISS card, and the actual clinic itself. The clinic cost goes up a little bit each year. Now, this is a summary of all the appropriated funds and showing the percentage of change for next year.
In the park department, we're adding an additional landscaper and a new banquet manager that's going to be at Eberhard. The cumulative sewer fund, that budget increased quite a bit, but we're just using the cash that's available, and we're going to use it for projects directed by engineering. In the law enforcement continuing education fund, we increased funding for ammunition and bulletproof vests. In the public safety lit fund, we have a significant purchase for our Stryker refresh for all the equipment, and that's a $1.3 million purchase. What that does, it's a 7-year program that replaces all our Stryker equipment, which is basically our cots in the ambulances, automated chairs. It includes maintenance and any type of replacement or repairs that are needed. And we save 20% by paying the contract up front. Also, this year for 2025, we are purchasing new police cars. With the 12-year shift change, we did not have to purchase cars in 2024, so we saw a savings there. In seated, we moved the city Mishawaka utility bill and NIPSCO bill expenses from the general fund. So that's been moved to seated. We increased maintenance and repair costs for numerous departments that are in seated. As projects are completed with bonds or TIF, the maintenance continues. And so we see some of that trending upwards. The amount for Rose Park improvements, this should be our last phase. We increased that line to finish that up. We saw reductions in the EMS fund and the ARPA fund. EMS in 2024, we are purchasing a refurbished ambulance. And for the 2025, we just have a small equipment purchase. Our ARPA funding is ending. Everything has to be appropriated in 2024 and obligated, so we have no budget for 2025 unless we are encumbering funds and moving that over. And this is a pie chart showing how our expenses are spread for the different funds. As you can see, general, capital, motor vehicle highway, park and recreation, and public safety. As usual, this is very similar to for 2024. Public safety is our biggest chunk of our budget at 55%. I kind of ran through that pretty fast, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. Mayor Wood's going to talk as well on some specific items.
Thank you. Any questions for the controller? Mrs. Volker.
I have no questions, but I just wanted to.
I don't believe you. I know you can think of one.
I probably can't, but I'm not going to tonight. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate, and I know I say this every year, but I really do enjoy the budget process, enjoy working with you, and enjoy meeting with the department chairs, and it's always an opportunity to learn a lot about what people need and how things are going, and so I'm really happy to be a part of it, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. Mr. Violi.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll echo Kate's statement. As an accountant, I thought, oh, I understand this. After sitting in 4 meetings with you, kudos to you. Thank you for your guidance and every time we had a question, the committee, you had the answers right at your fingertips, which I just was amazed at how fast you know your stuff. That's all I got to say. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Emmons.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank our controller for being in the budget hearings and leading us the right direction and keeping us on task and explaining whenever we had any questions or problems. She was right there with the answers and so our budget hearings went very smooth. It was very beneficial, and we got to the conclusion where everything what we needed, we got. And I want to thank you for your cooperation and helping us guide us through the budget hearings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I also want to add my thanks for the reasons that have been stated by my colleagues. But I also appreciate the presentation that you made this evening, as well as last year. I find this format to be very helpful, and it's a really efficient way to deliver a lot of information in a fairly short period of time. And even though some of it may feel repetitive to you, I think it's good for us and the community to hear it every year to refresh our common recollection of what goes into putting together our city budget every year. So thank you for the presentation this evening and the work that you do on a daily basis to keep us fiscally healthy.
I try.
Anything else for the controller? Thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. President, council members. David Wood, Mayor, here urging you to support our proposed ordinance 2024-24, which is our 2025 Civil City budget. Budgets are about priorities, and if you just saw the last slide, we always say that public safety is our top priority, and that pie chart and our expenditures sure reveal that. We put our money where our mouth is. The biggest single item increase in the budget is an item where we just wrapped up as far as negotiations and was ratified by the fire department, and that is the contract, which calls out a 13% raise for this coming next year and a 4% raise the year after that, and a 2-year deal. Unlike what we did with police a couple of years ago, a year ago or so, this one is not budget neutral or close to it. This one is a pretty significant increase into our budget, over $1 million. But we do that because, as I said, it's our top priority, and we also want our department to be at the higher end of the wage scale so that we can attract the best talent available in the region. And we did get some things in return as far as some contractual items that makes things a little simpler for management and such. But that is the biggest area in our budget. I won't get too much into detail like was advertised, just because I think our controller did an outstanding job of walking you through a lot of the bigger changes. Our budget, we typically tinker around the edges of it every year. It's not a wholesale change or a big sweeping difference from year to year. We just adjust in a fiscally conservative fashion and move on. And just like everything we do around here, whether it's trash contracts or whether it's budget, it's a all hands on deck team approach that includes you at a very early stage. We engage you early, and we think that that helps not only you, helps our constituents understand it, but helps us to move this process along because there is a very strict clock ticking on this. And so I want to thank our controller. She, I keep saying best in the state, but I absolutely believe it. She is an outstanding controller. Her staff does an excellent job, as do all of our department managers in managing their own budgets and, holding down costs where they can. And you play a vital role in this as well. So thank you for your many hours of meetings and questions and all of that. We enjoy that. I don't know if I want to say that, but we enjoy it as much as anything. We do appreciate the interaction. We like the questions. We like the engagement. And after all, it's all of our jobs to, provide the best services, the best budget, the best, that we can do for our constituents. So there are, as has become custom in the budget, some salary changes. I'll likely go over those in the salary ordinances.
Those there are some differences there with this budget as well as in past, where we try to adjust things based on market. So I will be introducing those or talking about those when they come up at the next meeting. Outside of that, we do have a couple of new positions in keeping with some of the demands of our services and staff. So one being planning, two being park, and as Controller McGuire mentioned, the Controller's office as well. So, but we try to hold the line where possible, and I think this is just another great example of how we're fiscally conservative, but yet provide just an outstanding level of service with our budget. We do an awful lot within our means. So with that, I will just end there, and I'll be back in front of you for the salary discussion later.
Thank you. Any questions for Mayor Wood? Mr. Mamalenti?
Thank you, Mr. President. Not a question, but just more of a comment. I kind of wanted to wait till you got up and spoke just to publicly thank you and the controller and all the department chairs for all the time and effort that they put into this budget process. As you had mentioned, it's a very long process. It starts early and ends late, but we always do a good job getting it done in time. I just wanted to make comment for some folks here that are new and also to the public. You know, it's really amazing how large this budget is, and Becky and her team do an amazing job. How few times throughout the year that we actually have to change money and appropriate and emergency ads and stuff like that. It's really impressive. So I just wanted to publicly let the folks know that you and your team and Becky do an amazing job and put a lot of work and effort into this. So thank you. I say it every year, but thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. And, we try to be very absolute transparent about not only the process before, but as you note, there are not many changes that happen as a result. But the other, I think, thing to point out here too is we get audited all the time. We can't do anything without getting audited, and our audits are always incredibly clean. And so I think that is another testament to our small but mighty controller staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mamalenti. Well said. Anything else from Mayor Wood? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? If you would, please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Hearing no one, are there any council members who wish to speak? Then at this time, we'll close the public hearing on this proposed ordinance, the Civil City budget for 2025. This matter will be set for final action at our next regularly scheduled council meeting on October 28th, along with those salary ordinances that the controller and Mayor Wood referenced. But thank you again to everyone involved in the process for the hard work that they've done on this year's budget. And with that, we will move into privilege of the floor. And at this time, members of the public are invited to the podium to speak with respect to non-agenda items only under privilege of the floor. Seeing no one, is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak under privilege of the floor? Thank you. With that, we'll move into unfinished business, of which there is none. New business.
Yes, we have the business of the Animal Control Board appointment.
Thank you. At this time, in order to fill a vacancy on our Animal Control Board, the chair would entertain a motion to appoint Katie Harris to serve as one of our appointees to the Animal Control Board.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to approve the appointment of Katie Harris to the Animal Control Board. Are there any additional questions or comments from the council? Then hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. So Ms. Harris is appointed to the Animal Control Board, and we thank her for her willingness to serve. Is there any other new business to come before the council? Mr. Mamalenti?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder that our neighborhood Twin Branch Neighborhood Watch meeting will take place this Wednesday, October 16th at 7 o'clock at Station 4. And I'll apologize in advance. You're stuck with me as the guest speaker, and any other council folks that would like to come. Just kind of keeping the folks and residents up to speed, kind of what we've worked on in the last couple months with budget and trash contract and other city items. So all are welcome. Again, October 16th, this Wednesday at 7 o'clock at Fire Station number 4.
Thank you. Mr. Emmons?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder that the First District West End meeting will be on the 17th, and our guest speaker is going to be the CEO of Standard Pet, the new company that's taking over WellPet. She'll be there to kind of go over what they're planning on doing, how they're going to help the neighborhood and that, and she's got plans that she's going to reveal sometime in the near future that will help Mishawaka. And that, so everybody is welcome at St. Babel's at 7 o'clock on Thursday. We look forward to having everybody there, and it should be a very interesting meeting. And then also, I'd like to congratulate our mayor for being elected president of AIM, and that I was honored to be down there along with our controller when Dave accepted the nomination as president and was voted to represent us and everybody else in the state of Indiana for the year 2025. So it's a great honor for our mayor to hear Mishawaka, to have that honor and to represent us over the 92 counties. So Dave, congratulations. You'll see the plaque out there that he received honoring him as the new president for 2025 for AIM. And again, thank you, Dave, for your work, your tireless work, and for representing us all over the state. You do a fabulous job, and we appreciate your effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that more than you will ever know. But I did want to throw one more reminder out here on, while we're here, we have tomorrow, we're celebrating a momentous occasion for the city of Mishawaka. We are essentially cutting the ribbon for our new fire station number 2. That is from 4 to 6 o'clock. The public is welcome. It is a significant investment in public safety, and you all have been invited, and I just want to make sure you remember that. And